Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, I want to talk about Game 1 between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then tee up some news and some notes ahead of Game 2 tomorrow. You know that TikTok sound where it's like, bro, who got you smiling like that? And my answer to that question would be Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's got to be the best playoff game that they've played since Pat Quinn was the coach. A 5-0 win and a 93% win on the deserved to win meter. The numbers are just speaking to me right now. But we're not resting our laurels on anything. We got 3 more wins to worry about, and Game 2 is tomorrow. So we will talk about Game 1 sprinkled in throughout this video to tee up Game 2. But I want to start with some news heading into that game first. Because Jack Campbell left practice after about 5 minutes today, and there was a bit of a panic on Twitter. But you would have been calm, cool, and collected like I am right now if you realize that they've been doing this all season with Jack Campbell, just managing his workload. And then this tweet from Luke Fox here, Michael Bunting taking reps with Matthews and Marner and Kerfoot, rejoining Tavares and Mikheyev on that second line. Now, nothing is confirmed yet whether or not Michael Bunting will be or won't be playing in Game 2, but I want to draw your attention to the Maple Leafs practice lines from the day before Game 1 of this series, so the Sunday practice. He was listed as an extra with Jason Spezza. He wasn't skating with Matthews or Marner because they were trying to get their lineup set for Game 1. So this could be an indicator that he may play Game 2 or will at least be a game time decision. If not, probably going to make his return in Game 3 in Tampa Bay. Luke Fox also noted that Ondrej Kase was skating down with Wayne Simmonds and Colin Blackwell on the fourth line with the Kyle Clifford suspension looming. We'll talk about that in about a minute or two. If Michael Bunting does draw back in, that means that the Maple Leafs lineup for Game 2 could look something like this. Anytime you can have a guy like Ondrej Kase playing on your fourth line, that just speaks to the depth that you have up front. And I thought that Kevin Bieksa made a really good point about him because he played with the guy in Anaheim. He noted that even though Kase has a history of injuries, he's not someone who takes 2 or 3 weeks to get back into the swing of things. He's a guy who can step back into the lineup and be effective immediately. And yesterday, picking up a primary assist on the Jake Muzzin 1-0 goal. And I thought that he played well. I thought that that line of Tavares, Mikheyev, and him were effective. But the Maple Leafs also did some line juggling in that game. Kyle Clifford's 5-minute major early on in the first period contributed to just the absolute blender that we saw from the Maple Leafs last night. There's about almost 24 different line combinations that played with each other. Even though they weren't a combination to start the game, Engvall, Kampf, and Mikheyev was the trio who played the most 5-on-5 ice time together last night for the Leafs. This was a trio that the Maple Leafs relied upon heavily in the regular season to just chew up a bunch of defensive zone faceoffs, and they always did so, controlling a vast majority of the shot attempts, the actual shots, the expected goals, the scoring opportunities, and the high danger shot attempts. In yesterday's game against the Lightning, they were out there for 3 neutral zone faceoffs and 6 defensive zone draws, but they just about broke even in terms of the fancy stats. Nothing happens when those guys are on the ice, and when something does happen, it's typically them going from the defensive zone to the offensive zone and pushing the pace. And I think that's something that has plagued the Maple Leafs in the past, where they may have had 4 good forward lines, but not very many options or combinations to turn to when you need to make an adjustment on the fly, or you want to get that certain matchup that you were eyeing maybe before the game started. This year's team, I feel, has a lot more versatility. There's a lot of different line combinations that the Leafs can roll out there that I would feel comfortable with, and I'm sure they do too. Now, Kyle Clifford will have a hearing today for the boarding penalty or the hit that he threw on Ross Colton. From looking at the last game that these two teams played up against each other, the Leafs lost 8-1. They didn't have Matthews. There was no Campbell. A couple of other guys were out of the lineup. But there were a lot of extracurricular activities after the whistles in this one. And Sheldon Keefe said that he expects this series to be borderline violent. I understood why Kyle Clifford was in that lineup over a guy like Jason Spezza, or maybe even Colin Blackwell over Spezza, because if you feel that you need Clifford and Simmonds there, Spezza in the middle, that's a little bit too slow of a fourth line to be playing up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We can look back at that 5-minute major penalty as something that positively impacted the game for the Maple Leafs because we have the power of hindsight, and we also have this quote from Austin Matthews where he heard someone on the bench say, hey, let's use this for some momentum here, and they had a hell of a penalty kill, and we'll look at those numbers in a second here, but that's a bad penalty to take. It is. There were a lot of soft calls in this game, but the holding penalty that Mikheyev took halfway through the second period, that was just after they scored on the 5-on-3 advantage. And I know that that gave birth to the David Kampf shorthanded goal, but eventually the bad penalties are going to come back to bite you. The numbers on that 5-on-5 major penalty were just absolutely absurd. It was 2-on-1 after 2-on-1. It was rush after rush for the Leafs. And they actually had more shot attempts than the Lightning did on it, 3-2. If you want to set the tone in a game, do it the way that Mikheyev did here with a clean hit on Pat Maroon that put him on his butt. Or even later on in the game when Wayne Simmons did it to Jan Ruda and it led to all of the shenanigans. Sheldon Keefe said it after the game, but that was probably one of the best games that Pierre Engvall played in his entire life. And that scrum that he had with Brandon Hagel towards the end of the second period. Listen, Pierre Engvall is 6'5", really like 6'2" with a neck. That guy is absolutely gronked, and him angry scares me. I pointed it out a couple of months ago. There was a shift in this team in and around the Heritage Classic where we were following a streak that they were on where they were credited with 30 plus hits and I believe 3 or 4 straight games. And we went back and looked through all the game logs. And that was something that it did not happen since they drafted Austin Matthews. And if they're going to continue to get a full team effort in terms of their intensity and their physical play, you combine that with their level of skill, they're going to be a real hard out in these playoffs. Morgan Rielly did cut open his hand when he punched Jan Ruda in the face in that scrum, but Morgan's been worse off before. I'm sure he'll be fine. If the Maple Leafs are going to win this series, they're going to need Austin Matthews to be Austin Matthews. And with 2 goals and 3 points in game 1, he's well on his way to helping them do that. Mitch Marner coming into this game hadn't scored a goal in the playoffs in 18 games. You have to go all the way back to game 1 in 2019 against the Boston Bruins where he had 2. So for him to come into this game and score 1 and have 3 points in game 1 of the series is massive. To have Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner so engaged early on, it's everything for the Leafs. If we're looking at where all the shots and the shot attempts in this game came from, the Maple Leafs absolutely peppered the Tampa Bay Lightning in this one. They dominated. But if we're looking at all the shot attempts at the other side of the ice, the Maple Leafs did a very good job in front of Jack Campbell. And the few good opportunities that he faced, they allowed him to see it. And when the goalie sees it more often than not, he's going to stop it. And Jack Campbell stopped all of them in this one, picking up a 24-save shutout. And for me, that was my biggest worry coming into this series was the goaltending matchup. You know, Jack Campbell had a terrific start to this season, but I don't really know if it was the injury that plagued him through the middle of it, where he went from being one of the best goalies in the league to one of the worst, and then came back from injury and had a solid 9 games, but it's only 9 games. Wasn't really sure what goalie we were going to get game 1, but they really just did check all of the boxes. And I did say in my previous video that if Campbell had a really good game 1, if the Leafs had a really good game 1, that I would be all aboard the Maple Leafs hype train here, feeling the passion and nothing but the passion. Look, I know it's just 1 game, but it was beautiful. Bob McKenzie on TSN 1050 about a month ago said that there was an alleged argument between management and the core group of players on this team, and management was basically accusing the players of, hey, why can you beat Boston, Tampa, Carolina, and Florida, but not Buffalo and Montreal? And then that same core group of players responding, we'll take care of business when it matters the most. And that makes me incredibly nervous, and it made me nervous when we first showed this in a video about a month ago. But if you're looking at their record against playoff teams this year, it was one of the best in the league. 23-10-5, I believe. I pointed this out in yesterday's video. Well, Victor Hedman leads the Lightning blue line in time on ice spent playing up against the other team's best players. In terms of percentage of ice time playing up against the other team's best players, that's Eric Cernak and Ryan McDonough. And in yesterday's game, Austin Matthews played the most amount of minutes up against Ryan McDonough. Even when the Lightning had home ice advantage back on April the 4th when the Leafs won 6-2, it was Mikhail Sergachev and Eric Cernak who played the most amount of minutes up against Austin Matthews. They shied away, matching Victor Hedman up against him. Obviously, the Lightning are going to look to respond in Game 2, but for the Leafs, I'm really just looking for them to bring the same level of effort that they did in Game 1. If they're going to play that hard and have that complete of a game, I don't think anyone can beat them. And I don't think that that's a hot take to say that if the Leafs just play to their potential, they're almost unbeatable. But the problem is that no one trusts them to play to their potential on a consistent basis. But like we said, if they're going to show up when it matters the most, this is when it matters the most. Continue to show up, please. Really quickly before I got out of here, as I'm filming, the news and Kyle Clifford's suspension came down. Gonna be a one-gamer. I don't know if he gets back into the lineup for game 3 or not. We'll have to see how game 2 goes, of course. But that's it for this video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And if you made it to the end of the video here, guys, we're like 20 subscribers away from 7,000. It would mean a lot to me if you're new to the channel, if you enjoyed the video, if you considered subscribing. If you're already subscribed, you know that I love you. Go Leafs, go. We'll see what happens in game 2.